Hi, and welcome back. So in the last video, we looked at hosting. More specifically, we looked at choosing a hosting provider, in our case, Hostgator, and how you might choose a specific plan. I believe we chose the hatchling or baby plan. Now, in this video, we want to dive into how you would actually get into your Hostgator account and how you would access your domain. Now, there might not be any website on your domain per se, but we're going to discuss all that in this video. So if you're interested, let's get started. First, we're going to go to hostgator.com. Obviously, if you had chosen a different hosting provider, you'd want to go there. We're going to click sign in, and there's two different things you can sign in, the web builder or the portal. We're going to choose the portal. Now, it turns out that our credentials here are already saved by Chrome, our browser. But if they weren't, you'd want to enter them in individually, and you'd log in with your password. And assuming your password is correct, you should be brought to a page that looks something like this. Now, every now and again, Hostgator or Bluehost, whatever your hosting provider is, may change the visual appearance of the site that you're brought to, the web page that you're brought to after you sign in, but you can more or less figure it out. And in our case, we're going to want to look for the hosting piece of this. So there are a few things we could do. We could do Command F on Mac or Control F on Windows, and you would type in hosting. Or if you had a screen similar to mine, you would come up here to the left-hand side and you would click hosting. Now, this is going to bring you to your hosting packages. And these hosting providers, like Hostgator, often allow you to have multiple packages under one credential. That, in our case, the splotivity.com or the CoLearnable@gmail.com. So in our case, we only have one here. We have the splotivity.com, so we're going to go there. But if you had multiple, you'd want to pick whichever domain that you wanted to use. So we're going to click here on manage for splotivity.com. Next, we're going to go to what's called the control panel, or in this case for Hostgator, it's going to be called the C panel. And with the login screen that we have now, you can see it up here on the left, maybe a third way down the page. But again, you could just do Command F or Control Find on Windows, and you would type in cPanel and then click that. Now that's going to bring you to a piece of software, an interface called Control Panel, cPanel. It doesn't really matter what it's called. Different hosting providers have a variety of different offerings, but a lot of them tend to use cPanel, at least for WordPress. Next, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to install WordPress. Now, there are a few ways to install WordPress. Primarily, you can either do what's called a one-click install if your hosting provider offers you that, which in our case with Hostgator does. And then you can also manually install WordPress, but that's a little more involved, and we're not going to cover that in this specific video. So it's a little bit tricky because Hostgator, as well as other providers, sometimes have multiple ways of doing this one-click install, and it turns out that actually one of them is incorrect. So we're going to use a tool called Softalicious Apps Installer. So if you go to the left here and you go to Softalicious, you can click there, or you can type Softalicious, and then you'd come down here where it's going to say scripts, and you'd select WordPress. Obviously, if you wanted to sell something like a Joomla site or PrestaShop site, you'd be welcome to do that. But since this is a WordPress tutorial, we'll obviously choose WordPress. Now, if you scroll down the page, you might see that you already have certain domains installed and using WordPress under this hosting package that you've chosen, but we want to install a new package. So if you look down here, Splotivity, splotivity.com is not showing up. So we're going to go to the install now and click this button here. And then you're going to be brought to a page that has these different options. So you have install, overview, blah, 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 blah. Doesn't really matter. Here, you'd be allowed to choose what version of WordPress that you want. Generally, my recommendation, both as a developer and as a business owner, is to try and choose the most recent or the highest number version of WordPress that your hosting provider offers. Now, at the time of viewing this video, the newest version might not be 5.5. Actually, it might be like 5.7 or 5.10, who knows? But the most recent version that Hostgator is offering currently under this package is 5.5. So we're just going to keep 5.5 selected. Next, you're going to choose the URL that you want it installed under, and whether you want an HTTPS or HTTP. In my case, I think I generally like doing the HTTPS if it's an available option, just because the way Google and Bing and other search engines treat your website is very different, whether you're just using an HTTP, an unsecured connection, or an HTTPS, a secured connection. So I'll leave that as is. Next, you can see that we have different either domains or combination of domains. In this video, we want to do spottivity.com. So again, we can leave that selected. Here we can change this in the one-click install, or we can leave it as is. But as we're going to address it later in this video series, we'll just leave that in there because we want to keep things super easy. Again, here we could have a more complex password. So I like doing something like admin 007, and then we'll say my secret password 123, and we'll copy that and put it in a safe place. Like here, we'll go to our notes and we'll create a new note and we'll have it stored there. So, and then this is an admin email. So you don't really have to change this, but I just sort of like to have it installed or used with the initial installation. So it's probably a good practice. But again, some of these things you don't really need to worry about. All of this, sort of the default settings, I'm going to leave as is. Again, the theme, I'm going to leave as is because we're going to address all of this a little bit later. Now, sometimes when you're first getting started, it can be useful to have the email installation details to a specific email. So you can choose whether or not you want to include an email there. But then you're going to click on this install button. And we wait a happy, merry amount of time, unknown. But depending on your internet connection, how many other people are using Hostgator, and potentially your own machine, this might take a propagating database 101%, a different amount of time. But generally, it takes between 1 and 6 minutes. Hostgator says it's usually 3 or 4. Next, we've gone ahead and we've installed WordPress. So the next step that we would do would be to go and log in. Now, there are a few ways to log into your WordPress site. One would just be to go here to the administrative URL, or 2, you could go there and then add this administrative URL at the end. So either you can go here and it should bring you to a page that looks something like this, and you should already be signed in. Or if we were to go here to our website, you'd see this is just how it appears to the broader internet. But if you want to log in, you would do /wp-admin. And then you would type in your credentials. So I think we did admin 007. And then we had our really cool note, which I believe was here. My secret password 123. Please don't tell anyone because, this is only public information. Oops. And you would paste it here. Obviously, you don't have to click this, but I'm just showing you. And then sometimes I like to hit remember me. It doesn't really matter. But that should allow you to log in whether or not you're using what we call an incognito browser. So then you'll arrive at a page that's called your WP admin or your WP dashboard. And on the left here, you have a series of menus with submenus. And now that we've gone ahead and we've installed WordPress and logged into WordPress, the first thing that's often good to do is to change your password. Now, you don't have to change your password. Obviously, you may or may not want to. In my case, because the entire internet knows my password, I'm going to do that. So the way that you would change your password is not go to settings, which I previously thought, but you'd actually go to users, and then you go to all users. Now, at the time being, we only have one user, but you have the ability in WordPress to create as many users as you want. So we would select the user, in our case, admin 007, and go to edit. It's going to bring you a page that will probably look something like this. You scroll down, and it should say new password. So you could generate a new password, and it generated a password, but here we would perhaps hide it so the internet can't see. And then you would you type in your password. We're not going to show it because it's the internet. and then you would hit update profile. And then you should be able to log in and out with that password. So if we were to go to Firefox, and we have to bring the screen over here, splativity.com, and remember you want WP admin. And you type in your password, save, and you'd be in. All right, so now we've not only installed WordPress, logged into WordPress and changed the password, but you'd also potentially want to make certain updates. Now, the way you can make updates is you can go here, and then you would go to the section for updates. Now, there are different things that over the course of having a WordPress website, you may need to update. Now, the first thing you might have to update is the actual version of WordPress itself. Now, we just installed the most recent or up-to-date version that our hosting provider, in this case Hostgator, offers. So there's probably no reason or sort of scenario in which we'd have to update WordPress. But if you wanted to, you could update it here, or you could even reinstall it. Next would be individual plugins, which we'll discuss later in a specific video about how and what you might want to use plugins for. But just think of it as like additional codes. It's like if you're a superhero, it would be like an additional cape, or if you're playing like I don't know, World of Warcraft, it would be like another weapon that you could use or another tool. But if you wanted to update something, you could either select all of them, which in the case of only having one, it would be the same as selecting this individual one here, and then you would go to update plugins. You'd be brought to a page that looks something like this. It's going to be a series of confirmations for whatever plugins you try to update. Most of the time the updates work, but sometimes they don't. So if you wanted to then check if you have any additional plugins, you would go here. And again, you don't have a new version of WordPress to install. You don't have the plugins to install. And we'll talk a little bit later in this series of videos about themes, but there are also no themes. So we installed WordPress, we logged in, we changed the password, and we made an update, in this case to a plugin, which again, don't worry if you don't know what a plugin is. I sometimes forget myself. And that would conclude our video on WordPress configuration. In the next video, we're going to talk about the site-specific configuration. We'll talk about things like removing unnecessary plugins. We'll also potentially discuss what plugins are. We'll talk about what pyramid links are and how to change them. We'll talk about installing a theme and what a theme is. And then we'll look at customizing your theme and additional cool features that you can do to make your WordPress look really distinct from another site on the internet. If that's interesting to you, join us in the next video. Otherwise, thank you for your time, and we'll see you again soon. Cheers.